Bruce Bullock, director of the Maguire Energy Institute at SMU. Thank you so much. So we know now that this effort by the lieutenant governor to have the governor reverse the billions of dollars in overcharges by ERCOT, and the governor saying, nope, that's up to the legislature to do, that's pretty much a done deal now. This will not happen, right?
That's correct. I mean, there's no other way for that to occur legally, as far as I understand, other than maybe through the court system. But it's for all practical purposes dead in terms of this legislative session, and really there wasn't a good answer either way. It's one of those situations where somebody's ox was going to get gored, and so those officials just backed away from it in general, and really just did not want to address it.
And so now we have a variety of bills, 7 yesterday, that were referred out of the State Affairs Committee, again in the House, to the full House. And one of them that we're focusing on is this weatherization bill, House Bill 11. And it basically sets out parameters for generators of electric power, co-ops, municipal-owned utilities, and then the transmission and distribution companies, the so-called wires and poles, right? And so it sets out these parameters for them to make sure that they implement measures so that they can continue to provide power even during a weather emergency, and that if there are service interruptions, to reestablish them as quickly as possible, come up with rules and procedures for employees to follow, and make sure that rural areas and low-income areas are not left out of this. But that's it. Those are the parameters. So what do you make of all that?
Well, I think it's certainly a step in the right direction. I do think, though, that it's somewhat of a skeleton, if you will, of a bill that's come out, and it's likely to be changed as it proceeds through the legislative process. Both houses are operating under some rules right now in terms of having to pass bills out of its various committees and so forth by certain deadlines. And therefore, they're trying to kick some stuff out that they can, that they have to. And then as it proceeds through the other house, then they'll get together in conference committees and so forth. And hopefully we'll be able to iron either their differences out or put a little more thought into some things that might need to be in there. And this undoubtedly will be one of those. It is not very specific in terms of the types of weatherization standards that they'll need to meet. There are some national standards from the National Energy Reliability Council that are coming out. Are we going to follow those? Are we going to go over and above those? So some of these things are going to have to be addressed further, either in this legislation or by the Public Utility Commission, which will have the authority to, in fact, enforce these. So it's going to require some further examination, further definition, either in the legislative process or when it gets to the Public Utility Commission when they have to implement it.
So because this isn't very detailed, it doesn't tell the PUC exactly what weatherization standards there should be. Do you think this is just a big picture bill reminding the Public Utility Commission that they do in fact have the authority to require all these facilities to take measures to so that they can operate and they can provide power during winter emergencies like the storm we saw, last month?
I think it is a reminder, but I think it also does a pretty good job of saying that it's going to have to be weatherized, if you will, up and down the value chain. And that means, as you said, the lines of the poles, the distribution, the generation, and so forth. And therefore, and they're going to have to take a holistic look at it. You know, we were relatively fortunate, if there is such a thing, in that we didn't get a whole lot of ice this past storm, or the lines and the poles would have taken a hit, and that can take much longer, in fact, to restore. And I just got back from a part of the country where, by the time the storm got up there, it was largely ice, and in Virginia and areas such as that, those folks were without power for 2 weeks. And so, in that regard, we were able to get power back, you know, in 4 or 5 days. But most of the time, the lines of the poles are a bigger problem. So, looking at the whole value chain, I think, is important, and hopefully, this bill will not only remind them, but have them take a look at the system holistically.
My last question to you is, do you think that there is enough teeth in this bill? Do you think that there's enough accountability measures in this bill?
I think that's questionable. I am not sure what kind of, if you will, carrots and sticks that the Public Utility Commission is going to be able to put in place. They're going to need both some carrots, if you will, in order to get some of these generators, especially some of the small ones that may not be heavily capitalized, to do this. At the same time, there needs to be, as you said, some accountability for those that do not. That's going to largely fall to the Public Utility Commission now, and so it doesn't have to be in the bill, but if it's not in the bill, the Public Utility Commission is going to have to issue some regulations that stipulate that. And there's another part of this that needs to be taken into account too, is we do know that a number of the generators were not able to get natural gas. And so something similar to this, addressing natural gas availability with the Railroad Commission, is going to have to be looked at as well.
And you know, one of the other bills that this Chairman Chris Patty put forth would establish a Texas Energy Reliability Council, which would have the executive director and the chairman of the PUC, you know, a commissioner, the commission chair, and the executive director of the Railroad Commission, and others be part of this new council, so that they are working together and communicate on a, you know, very regular basis. Do you think that would help?
I think it's a step in the right direction. My hope would be that they have some um, pre-rehearsed plans, if you will, and scenarios for situations like just happened to the state, where they can make some decisions fairly quickly, so that the generators, the natural gas producers, and so forth have adequate notification several days ahead of time, that they can make these preparations. Because once it begins to happen, it's too late.
All right, Bruce Bullock, director of the Maguire Energy Institute at SMU. Thank you so much for your time and insight, as always.